Hello, my name is Ashley Yao, and today I will be analyzing Walt Disney's version of Cinderella. The Disney story of Cinderella is a tale that many are familiar with. As a young child, Cinderella's father passed away, leaving her in the hands of her evil stepmother, Tremaine, and two stepsisters, Drizella and Anastasia. She was treated terribly by them, especially her stepmother, her whole life, and played the role of the maid to the family. Cinderella lived in isolation and was fatherless, and was never made part of her own stepfamily. One day, one of the king's messengers was sent to every household to invite all eligible maidens to a ball at the castle. Excitement filled the house. Cinderella was mocked by her stepmother and stepsisters for even wanting to go. The stepmother tricked Cinderella into thinking she would be able to go by telling her, "If you can do all your work and find something suitable to wear, then you can go." Upon hearing this, Cinderella immediately got to work. When she finished her chores, Cinderella pulled out one of her mother's old dresses to fix up, but she did not have enough time to work on it, as she was being called to do more and more chores throughout the day. The stepmother and stepsisters were about to leave and sarcastically asked Cinderella if she was going. Cinderella, not being able to come up with anything suitable to wear, said she would not be able to go. When Cinderella went to her room, she saw that her mice worker friends had finished her dress for her. Cinderella now had something to wear. She ran out to catch up with her stepfamily, and upon seeing her all dressed up, they ripped her dress to shreds, and she was, again, no longer able to go to the ball. Cinderella ran outside and cried. As she was about to lose all her faith, a fairy godmother appeared and turned average things into a carriage, horses, and horsemen for Cinderella to take to the ball. She then turned Cinderella's rags of a dress into a beautiful ball gown accompanied with glass slippers. She only warned Cinderella that she would have to be home by midnight, as that is when the magic would end. Cinderella went to the ball, and everyone was wondering who she was. Even her stepmother and stepsisters did not recognize her. She danced and talked with the prince all night. It was love at first sight. Midnight struck, and Cinderella left the prince suddenly and ran away, leaving behind only one glass slipper. The prince, still stuck on this girl that ran away so suddenly, sent out his guards the next days to find her with the help of this glass slipper she left behind. Even with a lot of tricks by her stepmother to keep them apart, the prince and Cinderella were reunited and lived happily ever after. Discuss how Cinderella's development falls into the Freudian psychoanalytical theory. Cinderella's story remained mostly in Freud's third level of consciousness, the unconscious level. In her early life, she lost her mother. Then she lost her father not too long after, in very formative and crucial ages in her life, especially according to Freud. Before her father passed away, he remarried a woman, Tremaine, and we can only assume that he was committed to her so much that he ignored the bullying this woman brought upon his own daughter. After his passing, Cinderella was raised isolated and treated very differently from her stepsisters. The abuse that came from her abusive stepmother failed to nurture healthy development for Cinderella, according to Freud. Cinderella's unconscious included much of the traumatic events and memories of the ill treatment she received from her stepmother and stepsisters. She also her repressed wishes to be part of a family and to be accepted as a family member. Of having to deal with all this trauma, Cinderella was excellent at repression. To avoid anxiety, Cinderella had to push away that threatening material deep into the unconscious. Cinderella's life takes place between reality and the dream world. Dreams, according to Freud, are the royal road to the unconscious, disguising the fulfillment of a repressed wish. Since she is constantly serving her stepmother and stepsisters daily, her dream time is the only time she gets to be alone and be herself. It is her escape from her own reality and a way to keep her thoughts as repressed as she can. Cinderella loves to dream, and she, like Freud, felt that dreams showed your innermost desires, which were for Cinderella to be loved and accepted by a family and find her true love. Cinderella suffered early on from the passing of her mother. Her mother's death may have caused a variety of many psychological defense mechanisms. According to Freudian theory, defense mechanisms are ego strategies for coping with unconscious conflict, which Cinderella had a lot of. And we already talked about Cinderella's denial, her primitive defense mechanism where she repressed material that produced conflict. I think that there may have been some reactive formation going on in Cinderella's mind unconsciously, that she hated her stepmother or hated her stepsisters, but in her conscious mind she loved them. She also used the defense mechanism of displacement, where she transferred the energy from one person to another. Cinderella's unconscious want and need for her dad's love was projected into the want and need for a man in her conscious mind. Beginning of the story of Cinderella, she was heavily ruled by her superego, which is the structure of personality that is the internal voice of parental and societal restrictions. She was always helping her stepmother with anything around the house, feeding all the animals and doing all the household chores. She felt she needed to do these things to be accepted into the family and loved. She worked hard and accepted the stipulations her stepmother gave her in order for her to go to the ball. She always did what she was told and was doing the right thing. It was not until the night of the ball, when Cinderella broke the rules and went to the ball even though she was not supposed to. That was when the ID containing those instinctive and motivational drives took over, enabling the pleasure principle. After the ball, the ID was still in control, as she did not tell her stepmother or stepsisters that she went to the ball, but instead kept it a secret. The idea was satisfying its instinctual urges, avoiding the tension that would have been brought on, and bringing pleasure to Cinderella. Now we move on to Carl Jung's theory. In Jung's theory, he focuses on the development that occurs in adulthood, as Freudian theory focused in childhood. Cinderella, who is a fully shaped and grown woman, goes through individuation in the tale. The individuation process reveals her unconscious mind and allows her to examine and revise it to make her a unique person. Cinderella, according to Jung's theory, is characterized as an introvert. As an introvert, she evaluates her world internally based on her experiences and how she mentally processes them. Introversion gives her the chance to evaluate her unconscious mind and how it applies to her consciousness. For example, staying positive in a stressful environment, as Cinderella does, is a projection of her dreams and how she lives with hope. In order to be a healthy person, Jung says that the person must have developed all four psychological functions: thinking and feeling, sensation, and intuition. Cinderella is described as a character that has all of these personality traits. Jung also talks a lot about archetypes, basic cognitive units of the unconscious. These symbols are represented in different character types. Universal symbols ingrained in the psyche of each human being. A primordial image in the collective unconscious, innate pattern that influences experiences in the real world. The type of the shadow is the psyche that is rejected from consciousness by the ego because they are inconsistent with one's self-concept. Cinderella's ego defines her personal identity and the center of her will to strive for her goals. The evil stepmother is a good example of the shadow because she represents the darker side of humanity and the negative impulses within each human. Jung also refers a lot to the anima and animus. The anima is the man's underdeveloped feminine qualities, the essential feminine energy in males. Cinderella's anima and animus act like yin and yang, balancing her out. Her anima is most likely her fairy godmother, which appears to guide her and give her guidance, allowing her to become more aware of her potential and what she's made of. The fairy is neither male nor female. It is an asexual entity. For women, it is a fairy, and for men, it can be a wizard. The animus is a woman's underdeveloped masculine qualities, their essential male energy in females. The animus in Cinderella is the prince. The concept of falling in love restores the missing pieces in each psyche. For Cinderella, the prince is the projection of her desire to love. With this unification, Cinderella restores balance to her animus by developing her own masculine potential.